thank you and talk to you again soon.
Liberals are warning of an electoral wipeout in South Australia at the next federal election if the Japanese bid to build the next generation of submarines is successful. The government's competitive evaluation process is halfway through, a final recommendation expected by the end of the year, but that has not stopped many Liberals making their judgment already. It's understood the PM's preferred option is for the Japanese as a way of boosting defence ties between the two countries. However, according to several Liberal MPs that have spoken to Sky News, the German and French options are far superior to the Japanese and more likely to be majority built in Adelaide. As one put it, the Japanese had to have their arms twisted to even put forward a proposal. If the Japanese get it, we'll lose every seat in South Australia and we'll lose the election. Another said in relation to the threat to the Liberal Party in safer seats, the problem in the country seats in SA will be Xenophon-backed independent candidates. It is clearly the barbecue stopper issue, according to all the Liberals I spoke to, and another said it's easily the biggest issue in SA. It is a vote changer and the safer regional seats will be vulnerable. Now, of course, the concern is if the vast bulk of the construction of the $50 billion project is not done in South Australia, and the concern being expressed here is that amount of local construction will not form part of the Japanese bid. With me now for reaction to this story and a few other issues around today, the chairman of the Parliamentary Joint Committee on Intelligence and Security, Tehan. Dan, what do you make of these concerns from your Liberal counterparts in South Australia about the electoral fallout if a Japanese successful tender is awarded on the submarines?
Well, obviously, Kieran, this is an important issue in South Australia and one the government is determined to get right. We've set up a process and the government will continue with that process, and I think what we need to do is, given that that process is taking place, it's halfway through, the government will ensure that the national interest is taken first and paramount. So I think what we need to do is really just make sure that the process we've put in place is followed, and I think we'll get the right outcome, and it'll be a good outcome for South Australia and it'll be a good outcome for our nation.
Your colleagues are clearly nervous, though, and it's not just the Adelaide seats they're worried about via Labor, that Xenophon, very popular in South Australia, could threaten some of your safer seats. That would be a disaster electorally.
Well, it is an important issue, and the government is fully aware of that, as our South Australian MPs are, and they obviously want to ensure that we get the right outcome. They've been very vocal about this issue right through. They obviously care deeply about their state, both the country MPs and the city MPs, and I think, you know, they can be absolutely reassured that the government, and in particular Defence Minister Kevin Andrews, will be doing all they can to ensure that the outcome is the right outcome for South Australia and the right outcome for our nation. I mean, we have to get this right. This is an important decision. It is worth a lot of money to the Australian taxpayer, and I think the government, it's put a proper process in place. It's made sure that there's proper time to consider that we get the right outcome, and let's wait and see what happens at the end of the year. But I'm sure we'll get the balance right between ensuring there are jobs created in South Australia and also we get the right outcome in terms of keeping our nation safe.
I've been told by some of them as well, your colleagues, that there is potentially a flow-on effect of Victoria as well, given the history of shipbuilding in your state. Is that your sense?
Look, these are important issues, and I think they're important issues not just in South Australia and Victoria, but for the whole of the nation. We want to make sure we've got the defence forces that we need and the defence equipment that we need for the next 20 or 30 years, and these procurements are vital in ensuring that. So this is obviously, it's really directly relevant to South Australia. It is relevant to Victoria, but it's also relevant to the nation, and that's why the government has put in place this process. And it's a process which is taking time, but we've got to get it right. We've got to remember that under the previous government, they failed to make any decisions in this area, and it's left the task to us. It's a task that we want to take on, but in taking it on, we're going to ensure that we get it right.
Okay, let's look at this poll today. The Fairfax paper is running a survey that shows 75% of people surveyed think the government should go further on stripping citizenship off those engaged in terrorism or supporting terrorism. 75% believe that the government should strip the citizenship off sole Australian nationals. This is part of a discussion paper now, but will it embolden the Prime Minister and Immigration Minister in pursuing that?
Well, I think what it shows is that the Australian people view this as treason. If you take up arms against us with a terrorist organisation, it is seen as treason. And I think what the Australian people want to see us do is modernise our treason laws. Now, obviously, we're going to act on dual nationals, and we've got the discussion paper occurring when it comes to those who might be able to avail themselves of another citizenship, or we will look at other options as well as to whether we should suspend citizenship, whether we should take away people's right to vote, their right and ability to access welfare. So I think what these surveys are showing is that the government is on the money when it comes to acting with dual citizens, but also that the Australian people want to make sure that if people are committing treason against us, the government is prepared to act.
And what's your sense? Is there a will within the government to go this step further with the caveats that you will put in safeguards that people aren't rendered stateless if, you know, another country won't take them? But is this your inclination? Is this what you would like to see pursued?
Well, we saw 46 backbenchers sign a letter to the Prime Minister asking him to consider acting in this area. There's been a process set up. We've obviously got Philip Ruddock and Concetta Fierravanti-Wells. They're doing community consultations on this issue. We'll have to wait and see what they report. Also, the committee that I chair, the Joint Standing Committee on Intelligence and Security, 3 of the members will be travelling to France, the UK and the US to look at what measures they've taken. Now, obviously, in the United Kingdom, they have moved down this path, so we'll be looking at that. So once Philip Ruddock's report's in and once we've taken our visit, I'm sure this will be something that the government will look at incredibly seriously.
All right, Dan Tehan, appreciate your time this morning. Thanks for that.
Pleasure, Kieran.